So let's start with a question from the audience. Does anyone have a question up front to anybody on stage? Okay, that's something we expected somehow.
There's one. There's one.
Oh, there's one. Thank you very much.
He's paid. I think it's a good question. Maybe I'll start. I'll start with my own experiences actually as a founder. It's been quite a while, but honestly, there is some truth behind it. There's a reason why they're choosing that way, and it's not because they're like stupid or something like that. It's actually there's a smart reason behind it, and the reason is it does take an awful lot of time and capital. And thus also revenue ultimately for a standard software product to become successful. And I noticed this myself. I was not feeling well. I had headaches multiple days a week, and I was always wondering why. And then at some point it suddenly stopped. That was at some point in 2007. And looking back, it was totally clear why that was, because the company was cash flow positive. And so at that point, I think you need to have 50 million, 100 million in revenue as a standard software vendor to actually be viable. And that's one thing. And we see that happening again. I mean, for example, now with our microservices architecture, we are cutting edge on the technology side. And there's a lot of companies now, small and large, that are seeing that as well, and they're internally coming to the same conclusions. But they still want something that's endorsed by a stable vendor. They don't just want to cobble together, certain things custom made and open source and here and there. And then when it doesn't work, nobody's sort of like responsible for the failure. So I think it always will remain in some ways. It's not a totally stupid, way to decide like that.
Boris?
There are a lot of, there are many projects in this digital transformation or change management setup going on right now. And as we all know, the majority of them is not as successful as they were intended to be, right? For many reasons. Projects get run over budget, often over time. And what we see is what we learned over the last couple of years is that it's because the people who have not adopted the new kind of methodology get their hands on something which is completely different from what they did before. So a classical example, so when you're talking about roles and not being fired, right? So if you have the, let's say, in many organizations, when you have the classical CIO, sometimes the new CDO kind of role, and if you look at what these people do, and you have a company that we are talking to like every day, where you have a hidden champion in Germany doing $1 billion in revenue, and the CIO is often involved into a SAP or some kind of ERP consolidation project for the next 5 years. He has a lot to do. So it's very hard to imagine that this guy who has to ensure the 1 billion wholesale retail business will be very excited and will have the time and have the right priority for using any of these platforms and then come up with an MVP approach, launch something in 30 days, evolve it quickly, listen to customers, be data focused, deploy 50 times a day. It's more or less like unrealistic. So as I said, it's a lot about ambition level, because very often the alternative for many businesses is most probably to go out of business when they do not adapt, because for sure there will be someone, it might be Amazon, it might be someone else, who will eat their lunch. So yeah, I mean, for this reason, it's about what you are doing, right? So you can either go on the, I try to reduce risk side, and then definitely there are some approaches and products that contribute more to this, or you try to behave like the companies that you are basically competing against, and try not just to manage the risk, but to manage the opportunity. And I would rather like to see someone being promoted for choosing Spryker rather than for choosing Spryker just because he is afraid of being fired, right?
Maybe one quick final comment, if I may. I think it's also changing quite rapidly right now. I mean, not since a long time, but actually it has arrived also here in Germany. I was just today talking to the CEO of a big, very conservative, you would say, financial services company in Frankfurt. And literally, you know, he was advised by somebody who came in as an outsider, but he was like, you know, a technology expert for quite some time. And it was all about agile. It's all about, so let's get started next week, not let's make a meeting in a month and then we present. No, we pick a small use case and you just get going, you know, and I'll make it happen. So it's quite interesting. We see more and more of that. So some of those big companies are also maybe afraid. That might be the Uber of their business, you know, knocking on the door. And if they are not ready for that, then maybe in 5 years they're not in business anymore.
Something that came up, like in conclusion to that question is, obviously, Hybris is a part of SAP right now, and Magento used to be part of a bigger company as well. What do you, all of four of you, think? What is the value of being part of such a big company, or what is the value of being independent? Maybe start with Magento.
Okay. Well, thanks eBay for helping us build Magento 2.
Paying for that.
Yeah, exactly, for paying for it. I mean, we were lucky, I think, in that we were always able to keep, well, actually no, I won't say always, for the most part, able to keep our own visions in place. We were tied up in other visions for a while, that things didn't work out. I mean, of course, you get this sort of this capital security, right? If you need to make an investment, if something just obvious comes along and it just requires some cash, boom, it's done. There are you know, tools for the overhead of running a you know, not small business that are available when you're part of a bigger organization. I mean, where we are now, being owned by private equity, is probably the sweetest spot, at least for us, because it allows us to do our own thing with a whole bunch of veterans running us, but you know, with these directives and funding that come from above and outside, without, you know, trying to reach down too far into the organization. So that's where we are today.
Okay, let's go to this SAP thing. Is Hybris sold a lot because it is an SAP system as well? Or how do you make profit out of the SAP connection?
I mean, it's one. I mean, I think it's really important to be, in a way, the master of your own destiny, and really be able, especially in such an innovative space as e-commerce is. That was really important for us, and I must say SAP has really lived up to that promise, and we can, otherwise I would not be there or here anymore, for sure. So, I mean, that's the good side that you really want to keep, and many companies, you know, big acquirers have destroyed a lot of value in ignoring that. At the same time, I'm flabbergasted when I experience it every day. The scale advantages are just so big. I mean, it's amazing what you can drive with the scale of a company that the size of SAP. I mean, you know, if even like on the funding side, if you have a great idea, if you convince the right people, you know, you get 10, 20 million to build, I don't know, a new cool next generation software in the cloud. Just for one little product. I mean, it's great. And the same thing on the sales side as well. I mean, this access to a lot of customers and a lot of trust. So it helps. Sometimes you have a stodgy image to overcome. That's, you know, you can't like get it all. I mean, you have to.
As long as it's more usable than SAP UI, I guess. Pierluigi, do you think it's like, as far as I know, Oxid has been independent all the way back to the foundation?
Yeah, we're approaching Donald Trump right now, so he can buy.
What does that mean?
No. There's no one.
Okay, so what made you grow, and how did you evolve out of that independent state you kept all over the years?
Like it is for most businesses, it's natural growth. Sometimes it's luck or timing or it's quality whatsoever. So if you got to take care for your own business, then
Have you ever reached the point where, like Moritz just said, it's so nice to scale things, but have you ever approached that point where you hit a border that you couldn't overcome, a barrier that you couldn't overcome when it came to scaling, just because you didn't have that backing of external funding?
Actually, it would be great to scale all the time. So if you throw some SAP chips over, I would take them. You know.
So you're open for more.
Yeah, sure we are. I would say, like I said, I'm like, when talking about these topics, I feel a bit like the underdog here. You know, I'm not the representatives for Palo Alto stuff going on. I'm a bit more down to what's going on in Karlsruhe, I think, and representing normal business. So
black market companies.
Yeah. So
no, Black Forest company. I'm sorry.
Like a
Black Forest company.
Schwarzwald.
Schwarzwald.
And there, it's all about making good business. You have to take care for yourself.
Okay. So what are your obviously you are not that long in the market yet. What are your plans on that? Getting external funding to get the scaling going, or keeping that independence?
So basically, we have external funding. So
that's right.
we are a VC-funded company, which is a good place to be. And as Moritz knows, it's very hard to grow a technology company if you have to rely a lot on like professional services and do things in parallel and not just have the product focus. So we are in a very fortunate position to have very high-profile like investors with a very high reputation. We have the founders of Zalando and Groupon on board. We have a Project A, which is a company builder from Berlin. We have the Benjamin Otto, who is the son of the Otto family, and two very large family offices. So we are well funded and funded enough to really double down and focus on building the next generation e-commerce platform, because despite like incremental improvements and new products that Hybris and other companies have produced, Magento was the last real new product, and it's almost 10 years that it was built. So I think we see a lot of opportunity there. Our investors see a lot of opportunity, and we see that the problem has changed. So it's not about what platform is the best. So we get a lot of questions from people who try to ask us, why is Spryker better than Hybris or than Intershop than Magento? And we always give the same answer, and this is that we're just solving another problem, right? And it's not about, we do not try to compete on the same things. I think Hybris is perfect for many cases, and the same obviously for Magento. Otherwise, they would not be that successful.
And
but if you understand that the problem has changed and the market has evolved, we are trying to address this. And for this reason, we're very happy to be well-funded, stay independent as long as we can, focus on the product, and just build what we intended to build.
So we just got a wrap up for that question. Is anybody in the audience having a question? This is your chance to speak to the gods of e-commerce. And I'm not mentioning myself here. Oh, Ole. Melissa? Oh, we got multiple questions. But there's a question here in the front.
No, he's asking.
Okay. You have to put it in your mouth. I had to learn that earlier today. I don't think we have that on the audio, so I will repeat it right now. He was talking about. Yeah, I understood it. I just want to repeat it for the stream. Okay, I was talking to him in the break before, so I know his question. He was asking if like video obviously is something that should have been around quite a while, but you still don't see it a lot in place in e-commerce. Is this something that is still underrated, and why do people not use videos in their shops?
I think it's expensive. I mean, if you know what a minute of video production costs compared to other content types, it is expensive. But actually, we're seeing it taken off quite a bit. I mean, whether it's for traffic generation via YouTube and others, whether it's for richer, conversion through content on the product detail pages, whether it's for service and support. So it's really happening. And there's a couple of really clever solutions coming out now, or being on the market for quite some time, using AI and other smart technologies to automatically, produce those videos faster and cheaper. So I think it's an exciting space to watch. And if you have some decent marketing budget, I think definitely look at video. I think, yeah.
Yeah, we've seen. There have been folks coming around with some of these like kind of cloud-generated, automated video marketing tools. They've been coming around Magento events for a while. We did add video as part of the merchandising products in M2. So yeah, it's there, and if you can't afford it, the payoff can be quite nice.
I think the question about the videos was answered, but there is another space which is, if you think more about video cameras, so this is also something which is around for quite a while, but for the same reasons, or for mostly the same reasons, it didn't really took off that well. I think it's because of the context. I think it's very hard because people are watching videos very often in different contexts, so there is not always this kind of shopping mood, and if the TV commercial starts, we all go into the kitchen to grab another drink or snack. There are some video cameras companies who try to put some layers on top of the videos to make them shoppable, but again, it's expensive to produce, and I think it's it's not the context for shopping as it very often is. So we see all the experiments that Instagram and Twitter and Facebook are doing with trying to make this experience shoppable. And even this one is not really picking up, again, because very often people don't want to shop in this context. So this is my opinion on that.
So speaking for system providers, this surely is no technological issue. It's all about the money. That's it. It's just pretty expensive to do that.
Oh, that should be the wrap-up for the whole event. It's all about the money. Something else like that was hyped quite a while ago and nobody really talks about it anymore is social commerce. Do we see something when it comes to that nowadays? Like, as far as I know, nobody's hitting the shopping button in Facebook up to now. What do you think? The American.
It's a good lead box, right? It's what it has been, and it's what it continues to be. Just another vector for folks to experience your brand, and oftentimes maybe not even your own produced content for your brand, right? This could be someone's review of your widget on their reviews channel, YouTube, that gets posted to Facebook. I have found my way into products, just seeing some interesting content, and then I'm conditioned. I know to go over and pop over to Amazon and pick it up, or maybe check out some more reviews. It's just part of the context of how you're acquiring your customers. Now, once that happens, once that develops in those streams, and once you see people inbound, then you can start to hit them. Then you can start to touch them and own that relationship.
But as far as I can say something to that, this was another topic that was pretty much hyped. So let's say like 2 years ago, social shopping, that's the innovation. You really got to invest in that. And that's just another great example when we're talking about innovation stuff and how risky innovation can be. So, and if you go all in something like that just because of some theory you're having, so innovation can be a big risk at this part. So I think this is a nice example for it.
I think a pretty useful concept that I come back to all the time is what I call the idea maze. So it's like, everybody has the same idea, like social commerce, for example, or social network was before that. And it's actually a good idea, but then there have been many others before Facebook. And why did they actually get it right with the social network? And why hasn't anybody got it right with social commerce yet? It's like you're stuck in this maze and you make all these decisions. Do I go left? Do I go right? And one of them will eventually come out the first and have made all these little decisions right.
Yeah.
Let me give you just one example. It is there. It's happening. I just talked to the CIO of a rather boring traditional company. They make floorings, carpets, tiles, the stuff you'd see here. Yeah. And I presented our roadmap, and afterwards he said, that's all great, but I think you're lacking a bit on the social commerce side. And I was like thinking, like, he's not like Red Bull or like some other cool like consumer-facing companies making tiles and floors and carpets. So what does this guy really, want to do with social commerce? And then he said, he pulled out his iPhone and he said, do you know the app House? I'm not sure if anybody knows that, but it's like a Pinterest for furniture and house renovations. And then the penny dropped. And before that, all he was worried about was, does he have the right stores? Is the product shown, nicely in the store? Are the salespeople educated and talk about their advantages versus the competition? All this is gone now because the consumer is going on House, which is a social site, saying, okay, I want to redo my bathroom. I like this, I like this, I like this. The products are tagged. The customer walks into the store, picks out their iPhone and says, do you have this? I want to buy this. And so suddenly, all of the decision-making process, even though the transaction maybe still happens in the store, a big part of the process beforehand is happening on social now. So I think those cases are there. It will just take a time and a lot of those details to get it right for them to show up in more places.
So, we got a question back there?
Hello, do you hear me? Okay. I think we talked a little bit about the future.
We don't hear
No?
you. Is that microphone even switched on? Oh, he's just saying no. Thank you.
It's on, actually. So, do you understand me right now? Hello?
We don't get it.
1, 2.
Oh, it's getting better.
Yeah,
It's
here we
getting
go.
better.
Okay. We talk a little bit about.
Who are you?
We talk a bit. I'm Hagen Fisbeck from Bridging IT, and I got a question. We talk about the future of e-commerce and the system. So my question goes to all of you on the stage. How is your software ready for smart contracts, blockchain, and all the smart stuff like smart home, smart city, and IoT stuff?
So, let's start on the right.
I'm not sure if I really...
He was asking about how ready is your software when it comes to new
Blockchain.
technology like blockchain. I didn't know all of those things. Or maybe I just didn't understand them right.
Blockchain, what was it? Internet of Things? I
Blockchain.
think?
Smart contracts and IoT,
Smart contracts, IoT.
smart home, and so on.
So,
Okay, so again, we said Spryker is basically a commerce framework, so it's meant to be something that helps you build what you need. We don't think in channels. We don't think about, do you have these features for this channel or for that channel? Can you offer this experience or that experience? So we believe in that you need a certain threshold of functionality, and there are areas we are focusing a lot on. But so for us, for example, we are working with a very well-known German brand, and they sell a lot of housekeeping electronics stuff like vacuum cleaners, for example. And
if you're already working with them, can't you just name them?
I can name them.
Oh,
I
man.
can name it once they're live. But they are in this Internet of Things kind of sphere where they want to sell, I don't know how it's in English, the thing that you put into the vacuum cleaner, the old school Beutel, Staubsaugerbeutel. I don't know the English word. Okay, so the audience got it. They are selling the Staubsaugerbeutel.
Cleaning bag.
Yeah.
The bags in the vacuum cleaner.
And they're basically
Vacuum bag.
vacuum bag. Okay, here we go. And
So
and
now
they're
everybody learned something.
and they're going into a very Amazon dash button kind of experience where you just have a very small button which generates the transaction. So basically there is no front end at all, right? And the system that we have just provides the order management part and takes these receives this order and processes it, etc., etc. So there is no like limitation on that end. Again, it depends on what you want to build.
Yeah, I'll pick.
In addition to my question, blockchain is not a channel, so it goes to the core of your technology. So if I want to have smart contracts on the blockchain, it depends on the architecture of your system. So it's not a channel.
I got it. I just said that we are not focusing so much like on certain things, right? So we focus a lot on the infrastructure side, but we see, for example, things like the hosting itself being a commodity, so we will definitely focus more on the PaaS, let's say, side of the game. I cannot disclose like any technological things going forward that we want to do or will not, but there is definitely something in the works for that. But I think it's very important, especially for the Spryker case, to understand how we think about them, and we do not think in features or in channels or just in theoretical concepts. We think about what is it that will enable the IT of the company to generate the USP they need for the business faster. And this is it. This is the only thing that drives the roadmap, the technical roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, it was a multifaceted question, so I'll just pick one piece, which is the IoT part. IoT is also often called, you have smart products, which means a big part of the product capabilities are actually now happening in the digital realm, in software. And so when it comes to commerce, to selling that, there's a number of really specific things, which we found out years ago already when we went into other industries, as I said before, telco, software publishers and others. First of all, you sell a bundle, You sell something physical, like the watch here, or the wristband, with something digital. Then the digital thing you sell in a totally different way. If you think about merchandising and promotions, it's not like if you're selling t-shirts, you say buy 2, get 1 free. It doesn't work there. You do other things, like you say, okay, maybe you get a free trial. You get an extra 60-day, 90-day trial. The way you sell it is different. This digital service, you typically sell it either usage-based or you sell it as a recurring subscription. The way you then bill and recognize the revenue up down to your revenue statement is a completely different one. The way you set up usage with capabilities with entitlements and those kind of things is completely different. The way you then actually have to ensure your customers' renewal and the marketing campaigns around that are different. So that's really something where commerce actually takes a completely different expression compared to if you're selling t-shirts on the web. And that's really something that we built into the Hybris software stack quite a while ago, and something that we see customers valuing quite a lot as they move into this IoT space.
So for Magento here, the case, I think it probably is the case with the other platforms here. It's just all about, how easy is it for someone with, for a proper vendor or, proper stakeholder in whatever technological bit we're dealing with, how easy is it for them to integrate, to engineer that for commerce? We, like last year already, had, I think, 2 different vendors for essentially like the Amazon button analogs in the Magento world, right? So these are just buttons that are connected to Magento instances. Now, as you're getting into blockchain, I think I don't know that Magento necessarily needs to be the ones implementing this solution directly, right? I think it probably makes more sense for whatever vendor is using this, and if this system is federated somehow through because of regulation or whatever, that basically the platform be able to support easy integration. So that merchants can do what they want to do and meet consumer expectations around these in these cases, sort of payment methods or surety methods.
So just like to make it more precise for Pierluigi, how do you choose which technologies you put into the platform themselves and what you leave up to the customers, the merchants?
Actually, our job is to provide a framework where the merchants can be as innovative as they want to, and it becomes part of the product if it has proven on the market. So then it makes sense to maintain it, because then it becomes one of our products, and it has to make sense to keep it alive. But you had one facet of his answer. I'd like to have another one here. I say technically, basically spoken, it's no problem to connect whatever systems. I'd like to talk a bit about another thing here, and this is standards. When it comes to exchanging data from different channels, we're totally lacking standards. And it's like, whenever you're connecting systems, you so much see where the data is coming from. We just had this chat about variants. This is a typical example for e-commerce. Like, everyone's having variants in their shop, and the talk about variants is there is this hierarchy, like you're having a father article and child articles, like as if a yellow T-shirt was the father of a red T-shirt. You know, makes no sense, doesn't take place in the real world. And this is like what I'm saying, like every system has its own interpretation of the domain of how they model data. And this is something that really, you know, eats the money, let's say it like this. So if you're integrating systems, you're most of the time you're having to fight with data standards. And we're pretty, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Olaf had a question.
Can I comment on this? It's very interesting, I think, because there was this attempt basically in this e-commerce time when they tried to have a unification of the same entities that we all are using, right? So like the customer entity, the order entity, the product entity, stock price. So let's say the basic ones, right? So where they try to come up with a standard to say, look, the world of the technology is breaking up. You have more and more services around your e-commerce platform. It's not this one giant monolith where you put all the features in. You have dedicated services for payment, for shipment, for tracking, for recommendation, many, many more. Every day service popping up, and basically people want to try them out because they all promise to increase the conversion or increase sales, whatever. And even a company of the size of eBay, let's say, failed in delivering on this vision because it's very hard to do, right? So even one entity like an order is very different across many systems. So I think it's nothing like that we can do regionally, even though many e-commerce systems come from Germany, as we all know. Still, it's I think nothing that we can take on like just in Germany here alone. It already failed, unfortunately, on a global kind of scale level with a lot of investment, a lot of developers behind it.
Yeah, but if you want to keep up with changing technology, you got to decouple from technology.
Yeah,
you know, to focus more on domain stuff. So standards would be a nice topic one day.
Yeah.
One day.
Let's make a forum for it.
One day. Ole.
Hello. My name is Oleg, and I'm a
You got to get closer to the mouth.
like this.
And louder?
Okay, my name is Oleg, and I'm a developer at Flagbit, and my question is touching development process. One of the e-commerce systems you guys represent has recently released another security patch, and this patch introduces some security fixes and also new bugs. So for some of the customers, it can take days to fix these possible and already found bugs. How do you see this problem, and would you suggest? Should we just ignore these patches, or maybe we should spend days and fix these bugs, and customers will pay for this?
I'm seeing a lot of eyes looking at me.
Well, obviously, having a system in the market with more than 200,000 installations makes it a bigger problem. But
Yeah.
I think it affects. I'm sorry. It affects all of the systems, obviously. So maybe you go ahead.
I'll the sin-eating part of my job. So where we are now, we're in an interesting position of supporting lots and lots of releases, and this is even across 2 major versions. So we are handling part of this with Magento 2. There is heaps more automation being built in. Essentially, we're removing more of the effort necessary to pack up releases, which is what we have for M2. The patches for M1, our strategy there. We are expanding the number of folks involved in testing these patches as we develop them internally. That's one thing. So that kind of gives us a little more surface area of coverage for the amazing breadth of installations out there still on even old versions of Magento 1. The regression, the effort to cover regressions there is pretty substantial. Another thing that we're doing, in fact, I think we may have even started today, is giving pre-notification so that businesses can actually plan. Say, hey, we know we expect to release a patch in the next 2 weeks. This patch, maybe if it has a remote code execution vulnerability in it, we will let you know so that you know how to schedule your work a couple of weeks out, trying to help you make some good judgment calls, really actually behaving more like the partners that we're supposed to be in all of this. So that's been, that was that is the result of post-mortem from our most recent release cycle. But in general, yeah, I mean, this is something that goes on and on. I mean, we do have, as we have more and more people coming into our wonderful enterprise cloud product, it actually makes it very nice for us to keep them patched and up to date. It's really nice when that stuff is on premises, and it's a little bit different when you've got all sorts of variability of an open system out there in the wild. But that's, again, something else. That's something you mitigate by educating people on best practices so that they can deploy without substantial effort. How did that sound?
Tough topic to talk about. Thank you for that.
What they pay me for.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's impossible to give you a global answer here, because regardless of what architecture the software has, when you're the master of the system at your house, you know, and you give the developers freedom to be innovative and creative, to customize whatever they want to, they will do it. So obviously the answer is updating yes or no if it makes sense. But I'm totally with you, I can understand it. A totally customized project may differ from the standard.
And I was in the agency world for 5 years. Trust me, I know the pain of a patch.
And you still chose to switch sides.
I still came over.
Yeah. Anything to add in that regard?
I think cloud will be long term. You know, the real answer to this. The market's moving very quickly towards cloud first preferences, and that puts the onus on the vendor. And at the same time, you don't have this plethora of different versions and combinations of versions out there, so the regression, you know, is much easier.
Yeah, it's going to be the more and more obvious solution over time, right? It's going to be too painful to not be, for most people to not be on a vendor's cloud product.
But it's not suitable for everybody.
There's
policy.
There
are many companies who need to be chief commander of their own data.
Sure. And I don't mean to discount that at all. I just think for more and more merchants as time goes on, as well as vendors also improve their offering and build more stuff, and we'll be able to take on more of that ourselves.
Right. I think, so you're absolutely right. So, I mean, as the time goes, hosting or infrastructure has already become a commodity. Right now, many people struggle with the DevOps part and the basically managing the platform. And I think one of the reasons why SaaS, like the application part, was not, let's say, that flexible. It's because, of course, the first attempts to build SaaS applications were, so the vendor took all the upside, giving you an application which was easy to upgrade, easy to support, but lacked some extendability and customization options, right? So this is always hard if you, on the one hand, if you would like to remove all the hassle, but still give all the freedom to build what you need on top, and to still have it customizable. I think, but the vendors are moving into this direction. There is technology out there that helps solving this problem more and more. So for this reason, I agree. And at the end of the day, it's so for us, for example, so we try to, first of all, we also give a lot of visibility. The code is visible. We have an open code strategy, so you can see what we are doing on GitHub. You get all the release notes. So you get migration guides when we update the software, so we tell you exactly what has changed. We're using semantic versioning in the bundle, so we have a decoupled application, so we show you in the bundle that, look, this has a BC break or has no BC break, so it breaks your backwards compatibility. Here we have added a major feature, so now most probably you won't be able to do it in a smooth way. And the way we handle it is that we have a release process that we call atomic release. So as the application is decoupled, we are releasing every bundle. So there is basically no Spryker 1.0, 2.0. Every bundle has its own version. And for this reason, you can decide basically what you want to update and what not. You can take the PIM part and stay on the 1.0 version forever, because your business model does not need any changes or involvement. You're just fine with the way you manage your products. But you might take every discount update that we have in our discount bundle, because promotion discount is an essential part for your business. That's why it's called atomic release, because you have no side effects, you have less regression effects, you don't have like to retest all the application. And the studies which are out there, they show that people in general, they use just 30 to 40% of a standard stack features, but still, if you do an upgrade of the entire application, of course, you're like paying a lot for stuff that you just don't need, right? You're paying for features that you might never use, for patches and bug fixes you might never use. Yeah.
So
but
that was what the question was about. So you can say at some certain point because you don't need anything, but that was like, oh, we found some security issues. They have to be fixed. Nobody knows about them, but we have already fixed them. So this is about.
No, just a conscious decision again because of the semantic versioning. So you see if this bundle that you need that helps your business has a change or a patch or like a new feature added, then it's a conscious decision to either upgrade to it or not. But again, the effort of we're not solving the problem of upgrades in the software industry. We are solving the problem of unneeded upgrades in the software industry. So this is like I think the main difference that you're just taking the parts that you really need. And then you have all the optimizations which are done on the infrastructure platform, etc.
So you don't have to care about bugs in parts of the software you don't actually use.
Correct.
Okay, I want to get back to a more high-level approach to the topic. Get back to the topic future of e-commerce, and I want you to have a take on two kind of things that keep being around a little bit and changing the whole way we embrace commerce, as you said. E-commerce enables a lot of manufacturers to get to the end customers themselves, which they weren't able ever before in history. What is your take on the future of merchants, like not of the manufacturers themselves, but the merchants in between? Do we actually need a wholesale thing in between the manufacturers and the end customers? Coming to the more difficult questions.
I don't go to my doctor when something's wrong with my car, right? So, I mean, it can be, and it has been the case that some manufacturers.
For example, if we take the Tesla case,
yep,
who are not having any Autohäuser anymore, dealerships anymore, they are selling the car online. Just a perfect example. Sure. Is that something that a lot of merchants have to fear in the future? I'm not talking about the doctor
sure.
and
no, sure. But I mean, if depending on what you're selling, yes, you have to pay attention to that. You do have to pay attention to that. But a lot of it is not easy for a manufacturer to make the jump into being an e-commerce, a direct consumer retailer. That's a completely different skill set. Now, if the manufacturer has the resources, then they can certainly they can probably buy their way in. But I think that's pretty much the answer to that is going to be tied to the vertical that you're dealing in.
I mean, look, retailers in the past, retailers being defined as folks that sell somebody else's products, basically, to end consumers, have been they have been incredibly lazy in many cases. They've just been, content enough with just saying, okay, look, we have the products in stock in enough stores, and that's it, basically. And that's just not going to work out in the future. And if you look at it from a 30,000-foot perspective, retail is a very simple business. You buy in volume on the one side, you sell in singles on the other side. And I believe in between that, there's only two ways how to really create value for the customer. And one is customer experience. So you make it a fantastic experience that customers love to go to the store, love to go to your website. They get maybe a curation of selections that you won't find anywhere else, whether it's service, advice, there's so many ways to do that. That's one way. And the other way is process efficiency, how to get the goods from here to there. That's big, massive investment in infrastructure and technology, what Amazon's been doing the last 5-6 years. Every quarter they open 15 warehouses, they buy robot companies for automatic pick, pack, and ship. They invest billions every year in software. That's the other part of it. It's only those two. And you have to pick your ways. I mean, Amazon clearly picked one of them. You can do a little bit of both, but I don't think you can do both of that to the fullest. And if you're doing neither, well, then probably have some problems down the road.
In the past, the physical retailer, he justified his margin because he offered the space, the physical space and the selection. He offered some consulting and some service around the product. And this goes out, right? So in the internet, you can build a very easily, right? So with every technology, you can build something with a greater choice, with often a better price, and even the holy grail of the physical retail, the service side, is very well solved. We have a lot of cases where the customer service side, be it through like chat, bots, or any other interactions, is very well served. So, I mean, this is like the basic rule in business. If you do not add value, then you go out of business. So for this reason, I think that the retailers have to come up with strategies that will redefine and bring them back into the game. And there are different solutions, right? You can do it on the customer experience side, you can do it on the content side or whatever else, or you can just double down on investments in same-day delivery, on payment, and whatever. There might be different choices. Maybe you have to do all at once. And for the manufacturers, basically, I think what we see a lot when we talk to these people is that what they basically don't understand, so they're underestimating the complexity a lot while having a lot of ambitions, right? So they had no direct customer interaction for the last 200 years maybe. Now they think that just by investing money into the right technology stack, everything will be solved. They underestimate that first how many different systems they need to build up. It's customer service, it's the e-commerce, it's the content part, the PIM part, the CRM part, the payment part, and it goes on and on. But the most important thing they have to learn is customer acquisition and retention. And they have never dealt with this direct customer. They've never learned how to acquire this guy, how to retain him. Very often they have never known him at all, right? So they sold products in a wholesale way. They never got a return from one customer complaining about something. And for these guys, we believe that very often selling on a marketplace would be the wiser invest of their capital, because they have very often huge ambitions, but Mickey Mouse investments that they want to make, or try to go for an integrated kind of way, so become like a vertical company which would own everything from producing the product down to the customer experience, maybe by creating new brands to not cannibalize your current retail infrastructure that you have. We think these are, and there are not that many examples who have mastered this transition from just being a pure manufacturing company to really build up the channel direct, right? So this is the point that we have.
Yeah, to come back, the original question is if the retailers should fear this situation, like the Tesla situation is. I say, yeah, obviously this is a threat, but then on the other hand, like one of the most famous TV shows in Germany is called The Shopping Queen. So shopping is a sport. It's fun. I mean, how many ladies in here would say one of my hobbies is shopping, just because I like the process, because I like to touch the wares and stuff like that. So,
but isn't that just like normally, like we were talking about stuff like virtual, augmented reality and so on. Maybe we have virtual reality things in the future. Maybe even experiences like that might be ported to the internet in the future. What do you think about that?
I didn't bring my glass bowl, so I don't know.
Yeah, but I asked you for that.
Yeah, right now I would say the thing I think about humans, no, not so fast, because people are having problems to adapt. And then on the other hand, people are often unwilling to adapt. And the perfect example for this, when you said this question, the thing that came to my mind was the e-book. Like, the e-book is so superior to the normal book, and it has been already 10 years ago. But still today, I think the share, I told you before, the share of e-books in the market is like 4%, 4.5%. Even if it is totally superior, but people are just unwilling to adapt because they're used to it, and it's fun. Fun having a piece of paper in your hand, and fun going through a shop, and you know.
Maybe it's generational. I mean, I think some of the things that we're talking about, like the fact that Twitter spent a lot of money trying to build, the buy button and everything. This stuff will change. And it will change in contexts that we don't necessarily have yet. I mean, I know already there's, I've got a 22-year-old at home, and he's doing things, he's got social interactions with social networks, using certain networks and using them in ways that are foreign to me, and I consider myself to be young and hip.
No, you're not.
Okay, one more thing like the glass bowl again.
Oh, yeah.
Again, a threat to a lot of persons, even to us on stage. The Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple. I learned today that they call them the GAFA, domination is something that is a threat to a lot of online shops even. Let me ask you the question, is in the future, is it even redundant to have your own e-commerce platform? You mentioned it a little ago.
So look, what is the threat coming from the GAFA economy is that these guys are taking the direct customer relationship, right? So this is what they take out. So you can rely on them, you can sell your products well on Amazon, you can leverage Facebook or obviously the Facebook, the Apple products a lot, but you have to understand that these guys take the customer relationship out. And in many cases, especially for the manufacturers and the brands, this is the single most important thing they own. Because if you are losing this connection, if someone is gatekeeping this, and there are also like the GAFAs 2.0, like the Ubers and Airbnbs for other industries, for other verticals, then you have a problem. So for example, if you're a big telco, and we met with a very big telco a couple of weeks ago, they are very afraid, for example, of Apple and Samsung coming up with the eSIM at the end of the game, right? Because what it will mean,
Samsung had a little drawback.
yeah, but it's not like so Apple is like promising to integrate it soon. So what will happen if Apple comes up with the eSIM? It's very simple. So all of us, so every single one of us does want the best connectivity at any place for the best price, right? So this is the customer experience side. If Apple can solve this, right, in a virtual way by changing the carriers back and forth depending on whether you are in Australia today, tomorrow in the UK or in Germany now, this is what you want as a customer. You don't care if it's Vodafone or Telecom or AT&T, right, in the top left corner of your phone. So Vodafone will most probably still do the business they did, but they will lose the direct customer relationship, and so goes for everyone. If you look at how deep vertically integrated these GAFAs are, this is why you should be afraid of, and then customer acquisition becomes very, very hard because they can cut out you very, very easily. The same goes for banks, for insurances. If you look at the Apple Watch, like there are players, the Apple and Samsung and Fitbits, collecting personalized health information. If Apple decides tomorrow to come up with a personalized insurance product for me because they know how fit I am, how much I move, how much I do, I have more trust into the Apple brand than I have into a traditional insurance brand. If Amazon comes up with a bank account for my Prime account that I have, I trust these guys more. I can't remember when I was at the bank, the physical bank, maybe it was like 10 years ago. I have no credits. I'm not doing the investment banking over the interface of my bank. I'm not doing the online transactions. I have apps for this. I have numbers 26, etc., etc. So these guys already own the relationship, and this is why the banks struggle so much with digital transformation. This is why insurances struggle so much. This is why many retailers will have serious problems because they have lost the direct customer relationship.
I think I fully agree with what you say. I think it's a big threat. I think one way out of that might actually come through smart products and Internet of Things, because that actually gives many manufacturers another opportunity. Once again, maybe the first couple ones they've missed on the smartphone and elsewhere, to rebuild that customer relationship and to collect a lot of data and really contextually know the customer. And many of these companies, they're not even aware how well these GAFA folks actually know the customers. I mean, if you go to any manufacturer, they maybe have a CRM system, and in the CRM system you have a record that says, okay, this is the customer's name, and this was the last time he bought something. That's probably about it. And if you think about Facebook, just as an example, if you're a brand new user to Facebook, there's a study from Cambridge University. After 3 likes, they know you as good as any person you would meet on the street. So you maybe know gender and height and color of hair. After 30 likes, they know you as good as a colleague from work, so you might know, okay, are you married or not, does he have kids, what's the favorite football team he follows, and so on. After 300 likes, it knows you better than your own spouse. So the question, what might be the next best birthday gift? Maybe Facebook knows it better than your wife or your husband. And so they have the means, and actually it's possible now. We launched a new product called Hybris Profile, which actually allows you to create a real-life contextual customer profile in the same way and with the same data structures that actually Facebook uses. So it's possible now that technology is actually available in a much wider way than maybe just a couple years back. But it's going to be a tough battle. I mean, and these guys are going to go invest in the same areas just as much. So it's a toss-up there. It's not easy.
So I've seen the emergence. I've watched over the last couple of years of events. there are plenty of vendors out there now that allow you just with a simple plugin. I assume they exist outside of Magento as well, where you literally all that happens is you install the module, free module connects to a service. Well, this doesn't exist in Germany, I'm sure, but in the good old States, you install the module, and all of the order data is consumed. The data is matched against purchased data profiles from these systems, and so and then all of a sudden you have actually pretty intelligent targeted marketing and marketing buys happening for you just behind the scenes in the cloud like magic. That is actually maybe leaving some of this power in the hands of merchants. But yes, increasingly, I mean, it's all about the experience, and as that experience or that awareness or that touch with the customer is wrested away from the merchant and blocked more at some of these big acquirers, yeah, I'd get a little nervous.
And I think it's another interesting fact is that it takes so much investment and so much work and so much technology for an average retailer to get this customer relation, to start learning his customer. And if we think about the GAFAs, we give them all this information, Moritz just said, for free, right? So we give them this information every day, all of us. And they say, if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product, right? And for them, this is like very true. We give them the information for free, and the typical retailer has a lot of problems to catch up, because basically he needs this first transaction or very sophisticated tracking to start collecting this data in any kind of system, right? And I remember a very funny story when we met with a furniture retail company in Germany, and we were talking about BI and the capabilities on the customer side, and they were like, oh, we know our customers already very well. They come into our houses. And I said, yeah, so let's have a look at the data. And then after a couple of minutes, it became clear that they know the customer. So the customer lives in the transaction. So they have the orders, the Aufträge, the Lieferaufträge, so the shipment how do you say, the
information.
Shipment information, so they know where they sent this table to, and this is the only way they kind of interacting with the customer. There is no Moritz or Ben or Pierluigi or Boris living in their system, where they connect all the data points and know how often I was in the store, what did I check, what did I buy. They just know that they shipped this table to me. And this is their way of, oh, we know the data already and we have it in the system. So it was a very interesting experience.
Come on, if I was in the audience, I would be scared now. I mean, they're listening to us complaining about that we're gonna die. So
before you
we
leave
should at least
Facebook,
invent
like
some
us.
solution. Excuse me.
I saw what you did there.
Before you leave Facebook, please like us, okay?
Yeah.
So
Obviously, this is a big threat. And it seems like no one really has a solution for that. But I'm at least happy that everyone's saying that the biggest threat is the customer relation, because
biggest threat or the biggest chance?
No, that when we're talking about the threats and analyzing the threats, because most of the time I hear that like it's the pricing, as if buying on Amazon and saving 20 cents would be the killer for you. You know what I mean? I mean, most people...
I buy on... Honestly, I'm sorry, I buy on Amazon as well.
Yeah.
But I buy over there even though it's more expensive.
Yeah, and that's the reason for it, because it's comfortable. And it's cool.
I know it works.
Yeah, it works and it's comfortable. But most of the time when you have this conversation...
And I paid for that fucking Prime thing.
Yeah, does it work? But most of the time you're having this conversation, it's like, it's the price. And the normal customer buying there, who's wearing a like 800 euro mobile phone in his pocket, going to fitness center, choosing to go to a restaurant in the evening and buying a wine that costs like 10 times the bottle he would have had. And
I would say the difference is that we have insiders on stage. If we had traditional companies up here, they would talk about the price.
Interesting.
I'm not sure. I think the main reason for people to buy something is if it feels good. You know, if you convince somebody, it has to feel good to
yeah,
make
but still the question is, what do people think about that? And how do they analyze their own business? Let me come to, like, we are already over time, 10 minutes, but I think it was a really interesting discussion, but let me come back to Trump in the end. No, just one thing we see a lot in the politics right now is people try to isolate countries. get their countries back. You know?
Yeah, I don't know where ours went.
Not yet. We
But
don't know.
evidently we got it back yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, but is that isolation of countries a threat to e-commerce as a whole? Since internationalization obviously is a huge thing in the e-commerce industry. So is there some, like, are politics in the future maybe even more of a concern than it used to be in the past? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it really depends on the size of the country. I mean,
The US and A?
no, I mean, what's the? I mean, is it really beneficial if I don't know, if let's say the DACH region, if Germany, Austria, Switzerland, if they all have just one merchant that's dominating a category, or if there was actually local players? I'm not necessarily saying that you get a better deal or a worse deal with each. So, I mean, you have, of course, this tendency to, you know, a clear winner in every category globally almost, if you open up the borders. But I'm not saying, unless it's a super small country that cannot really, you know, drum up the capital internally to create a winning player, I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying I'm a pro-isolist, but I wouldn't say it has a totally negative effect on e-commerce necessarily.
I could see it go, you know, any number of ways. I mean, on the one hand, I think, you know, these risks are interesting now because there's such a level of connection among, you know, nations on different continents than has existed in the past. The spread of information is certainly more immediate than it used to be. But, you know, with these open markets, you do have, like, everyone in this room knows or should know, like, I mean, Alibaba's coming. Like, Alibaba's coming here. They're going to be here. They're going to be in the States.
Are you talking about a person or a company?
So,
The company.
maybe one other example from a different industry and a different country, which I found really amazing. If you look at the Nordic countries and you look at the media industry, like over here and in the US, the media industry has, you know, almost all of their revenue streams have been taken away. Like, you know, classifieds, you know, eBay and Craigslist took that away, and advertising is now on Google and Facebook, and all of this stuff has gone away, and these old media companies have not really reacted to that. Now, if you go to Sweden or Finland, that's been off the beaten path. So Amazon and eBay, when they went international, they didn't say, let's not go Sweden. It's not interesting. It's too small. You know, we don't go there. We go Germany. We go the UK. You know, we go China, whatever. So the media industry in Sweden, actually, because of this isolation due to a different reason, actually has managed to very well create their own competitors to those big internet titans, companies like Blocket, for example. And then they have managed to even roll those out across Europe and the world, and actually be a competitor in many ways quite successfully. So that's what I'm saying. It creates opportunities as well. You know.
I think personally that like there are two other reasons. So why it makes sense to not being isolated. So number one is that like the threshold of revenue that you need to be like more or less on a safe side within a certain vertical, it has increased over the last 15 years. So when I started in e-commerce like 15 years ago, you had like a 1 to 5 million online revenue. This was considered to be big, right? And then very quickly it moved up to 10 million, and when you had 10 million, you were like the leader of the category. And then it moved up to 100 million. And now in many verticals, especially the commoditized ones like fashion, you need a threshold of almost 1 billion to really be someone important, to really have some certain economies of scale in terms of logistic and infrastructure and pricing, etc., and sourcing, because otherwise you will just not be able to compete, because customer acquisition becomes more and more expensive every day. So I think there is a lot of opportunity to basically take the blueprints that there are out there in the US or in Germany, so in a more saturated but also more developed markets, and to apply them with a much cheaper customer acquisition cost into new regions, into new markets, where you can basically take the physical or the virtual product that you're selling and address the customer and engage with the customer, delight the customer with something that you maybe have done in Germany 5 years ago, and coming up in the Africa region with a mobile experience is maybe like very, very cool. And today in Germany and in the US especially, it's like something very common, right? So you would not, it's not something that gets someone excited anymore, right? As today we have this payment, we had this payment talk, right? From PayPal or this Uber kind of experience. It's not something that you see a lot in this developed country, this emerging markets. And I think if you are a retailer, if you have the opportunity to take your product, take your service to the next level, and do it for a cheaper price rather than just competing in a in your own market, this is a huge opportunity.
So the last take on anything today?
On anything.
Well, we said so much now, but I'm totally with Moritz here. Like you claimed, if people want their country back, this might be a chance for local heroes as well. So there might be chances, there might be threats. I guess right now it's a threat for the United Kingdom. If they leave the EU, they're pretty isolated. If
Well, they said they want to work together with Mr. Trump.
If they want to get with
Let's see if he wants to work with the UK.
Yeah, but if they have been used to been exporting to the EU, for them it's becoming a problem. But basically, it depends.
So, do we have any final questions in the audience? I'm pretty sure whenever you have a question for anybody on stage, please just approach everybody. I think. Does anybody of you want to say something? What are your additional takes on the future?
Thank you for this event, for the invitation.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
And
thank you for coming.
And thank you guys for, like, you work all day long e-commercing, and then you come here and you e-commerce more. It's amazing.
And they even pay to hear us talk.
They get to pay for this.
You should really invite them for a drink.
Thank you guys for starting the thank you session. First of all, I would like to thank our sponsors, PayPal, Inksmail, and Continuum to make this work. Oh, thank you for having the slide for that. Thanks a lot for everybody that was on stage. Daniel Löffler, Fabian Klamann, Laura Reinhardt, Mr. Meloni.
Oh yeah.
Ben Marks, Moritz Zimmermann, as well as Boris, obviously. I'm not that good with names. I'm happy I got them all together. Thank you everybody for coming. Thanks a lot for the questions. Yeah, and thanks everybody who I didn't mention and should have mentioned. So yeah, that's about it. And please, nobody leaves the house without like all the things eaten over there. Let's have a chat at the bar and connect, and yeah, hopefully we'll see each other again next year.
Thank you.
We'll have a drink.